Catching up with Ziprecruiter. That's next on the RecTech podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
Hey again, RecTechies. Welcome to the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. Mastering recruitment technology is the key to hiring great talent, and that's why my show exists. All right, so Matt Plummer is the Senior Vice President of Product Strategy and Enterprise Solutions for Ziprecruiter, one of the world's largest job marketplaces. Founded in 2010, the Santa Monica-based company has over 1,000 employees in the U.S., Canada, the U.K., and Israel. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you today? It's great to have you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. It's a long time coming. I've been thinking about ZipRecruiter for many years now. And, I want you guys to constantly be that force up there because we need, buffers against the other bigger job boards in the space, right? I won't name names, but you know who they are.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been a little quiet lately. So I wanted to get somebody on the line here and see what you guys are up to. So thanks for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, happy to do it.
So, and you just said celebrated 10 years, I think, at Zip. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, it's been a great ride. My longest tenure at any company. So I think that says something about the great problems we get to solve. Very rewarding to be in this space and helping people get jobs and helping companies grow through hiring, and a great business and a great team to work with.
Yeah. Fun fact: I met Ian Siegel. I think it was at a SHRM event in maybe Chicago, and I shared a cab with him in the early days of ZipRecruiter. And back then, you weren't even a job board. You were just like staffing websites, I think. That's how he started it, if I remember correctly. But yeah, quick story there. So what's new with the company? I know you just did a partnership with icims. Give me some headlines here from your standpoint.
Yeah, we just last week actually announced our new partnership with icims, and it's basically sort of a full circle apply integration, pretty common in the industry and pretty well known in terms of how these typically work. But with icims, they really took a pretty good approach to how they thought about this. So early partnership with us and making sure that like the requirements were would align well with what we were trying to accomplish in terms of making it easier for job seekers to apply to the jobs that they're qualified for, and then obviously easier for recruiters to get that talent in. And they share with us like the ethos that we want the recruiters working in their sort of tech stack of record, which in the case of icims customers is icims. We don't want the recruiters having to jump around and think about different platforms. And we want them to engage with candidates quickly. Like we know that like time to lead is important in the sales world. It's the same idea with candidates. So an integration like this allows us to get candidates into these jobs quickly, and then allows recruiters to get back to them. That helps the candidate drop-off issue. That helps with like sort of the employer branding, if you will, because most of these companies have a consumer brand and they want to be mindful of that sort of experience that these potential candidates have.
Nice. And paint the picture for us, Matt. Like, what's the ranking today? Is it Indeed, LinkedIn, you guys? How big are you guys? Give me some traffic numbers. Whatever you can share there would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's the right class. Like, I think we feel that we sit in that class with Indeed and LinkedIn. I would say from a traffic point of view, we about 12 million job seekers a week work with ZipRecruiter in some way, shape, or form. We've actually grown tremendously from an organic point of view, up 40% in the last year. Mobile app installs are up 20%. We are the #1 rated mobile app on iOS and Android. I think we've held that title since we like launched our mobile apps, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it might have been.
Yep.
So that organic engagement up is very much up, which is probably a side effect of both the fantastic product that we've been building for job seekers and helping them really solve sort of a next generation user problem. And goes along with some of our advertising that you may hear now and again out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Podcast ads are everywhere. Let's talk about that for a second. Actually, it was on my list for later. But like, how successful has that been for you guys? What's the strategy behind it? And give me some thoughts there.
Yeah, I can't speak to the entirety of that program. That's more of our awesome marketing team. But we found podcasts early as a channel that just worked really well and drove really good employer engagement. A lot of those ads, you can tell, are much more geared towards the employer side of things. They also speak to job seekers, obviously, and that kind of helps both sides of the marketplace. But they've been very effective. We continue to find sort of new voices or some existing voices. You can see like there's a broad range of personalities that we've tapped into, and they'll kind of add their own flair to it. But as far as I'm aware, we keep doing it because that program works really well.
Yeah, very interesting. It's been a tough, 12 to 18 months for most job boards out there in terms of the hiring market. How do you guys view this market? It's just a strange, environment we're living in because there's still plenty of jobs out there being hired for, but the companies are just not spending as much as they used to. But what's your perspective?
Yeah, I think ZipRecruiter's perspective is that we are expecting budgets this year, TA budgets, to look pretty much like they did the back half of last year. So you got these talent acquisition teams who are dealing with pretty decent workload in terms of what they're trying to hire for, because as you've seen in the jobs reports, like there are more jobs being added, but they're expected to do more with less from a budget point of view. So they're looking at us to be like, hey, help us be more efficient, more effective. And that goes, I would say, not into just like sort of the job advertising dollars and how those are spent, but really looking at some of like the recruiter behaviors and practices. And if we see that there are certain recruiters who like just don't get back to their candidates, or who might be like kind of oversaturating some of their roles. Some people just leave these roles up all the time because they forget to take them down. That's a lot of like bad job seeker experience, clearly, but that's a lot of waste that goes into the dollars that are very sort of that we're trying to nurture, get a lot out of this year. So we do see that trend continuing through the year. And our job is to go help those employers be more effective with their dollars and to win more of those in response for the value that we're creating.
Yep. And it's basically when let's say a small employer comes to ZipRecruiter today, it's post a job, it's basically budget based, right? Can you walk me through that process for them quickly?
Yeah, maybe actually a good point of clarification is we do have pretty distinct sort of small business solutions and enterprise solutions. I spend most of my time on the enterprise side, so working with large national hiring brands, staffing firms, the recruitment marketing agencies. And then we do have our small business division. And so if you were to go to our website right now and sign up as an employer, you would be experiencing our small business solution. The enterprise solution is much more white glove service. We manage things. We sort of develop strategy with our clients or in partnership with the recruitment marketing agencies, and we deploy those ourselves. On the SMB side, it's much more self-serve. We use more of a slot type of solution, so kind of like duration based, but you have these slots that you can utilize. You can rotate jobs through them, and that is, you're allocating a certain number of dollars for those slots and capabilities there. On the enterprise side, it's more of like a performance media solution.
I did hear some rumblings that you guys are going to be maybe increasing pricing this year, or can you talk about that at all or give us some insights?
Yeah, we're constantly evaluating sort of the value that we create for our customers, and obviously then the cost that might be associated with that. I don't know about any specific price increases, but I would say that we're always evaluating that. And some firms have been with us for a long time and might be getting a very good deal for what they were paying many years ago compared to now. And so we would look to make sure that those are sort of right sized. But we believe, because we see it in the data and we see it, we hear it sort of anecdotally from our customers, that ZipRecruiter drives tremendous value back to our employer customers. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we weren't. I would like to think, at least. So I'm pretty comfortable and confident in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking for your next HR technology role? Go to your browser, type in hrtechjob.com, and browse hundreds of jobs with the best HR technology vendors. HR tech professionals finally have a dedicated job marketplace to find work or be found. Sign up for job alerts or post a resume. Discover jobs with companies like Workday, Phenom, HiBob, Deal, and more. You'll even find HR tech roles with employers in case you want to work with managing HCM or HRIS platforms. HR Tech Job, the only job market for HR technology careers. Join us at hrtechjob.com.
How's Phil doing?
Phil is great. Phil is thriving, still learning, like any sort of, I guess, AI solution. Phil will always be learning and improving. The Phil experience has evolved a ton over the years. We really started Phil as kind of a face to our matching and recommendation engine. People have actually come into the office, into the reception desk, and said, I'd like to talk to Phil. Phil's helping out. So, we've had to clarify sometimes that Phil is not a human with a cubicle in an office anywhere. But Phil continues to get better. We're doing a lot right now in improving how job seekers onboard. In particular, we want to make sure that we are learning from them more acutely. There's two ways to learn, like information that the job seeker provides like very explicitly, and then information that you learn implicitly from their behavior. And we think we started building out our ML AI capabilities about 2015 or 16. So
Yeah, you guys are early on in that in terms of.
Yeah, you mentioned the Tel Aviv, Israel office. That's where that work started back in, I think, 2015 when we started building out that team. And a lot of good computer and data scientists in Israel, and so we've really tapped into that network well. We started really on learning from implicit behaviors, and we want to do a lot more, as you can kind of see here on the screen, and get a lot more sort of explicit job seeker input.
Yeah. So when I choose you have three options here. I'm looking for a job right now. I'm looking for a job with no rush. I'm just browsing. So what are the differences here between if I choose one of these versus the other? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, you can kind of experience it a bit, but I'd say just if you put yourself in the position of a career advisor, as a human career advisor, and if you had somebody that came to you and said, Chris, I'm looking for a job right now, you would think about the world a little bit differently than you're like, hey, I'm actually if your friend or whoever it might be was like pretty content, but maybe looking for an upgrade when the right opportunity presented itself. Your sort of levers or your filters would be a little bit different in terms of urgency, in terms of willingness to look at different comp levels, willingness to maybe drive further or commute or work from home and all that. So I'd say it's an influence on the different tolerances for the types of jobs you might show somebody.
Yeah, I chose, I'm just browsing. I take the marketing manager. So I'm going through the process here. It's almost like you're pre-screening applicants before they get to the job, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And that's going to really help you just drill down on the quality of candidate, right? That's really what it comes down to, I think.
And in particular, I'd flip that around a little bit. And I would say the applicability of the role to the candidate, right? They're kind of maybe two sides of the same coin there.
Yep. Yeah, totally. But I kind of like that approach. It's really going to help you just drive more quality applicants to the employers out there.
That's right. People who are like,
it's kind of what they're doing already, right? The employers are already pre-screening like this. It kind of makes sense for you guys to do it too.
Yeah, and you happen to be here on the desired minimum pay screen, and like why leave that for the last conversation in an interview? Get that out of the way up front as early as possible.
Yeah, I want 200K, Phil. Very cool. By the way, I think Phil could probably be like an AI voice someday. You guys thinking about that?
Yeah, the sky's the limit on what we're able to do here, especially with sort of the advent of a lot of this LLM generative AI stuff, which we are using to help with resume development, job description development, basically the things that we kind of all know Gen AI is really good for, getting people started with some content and getting that dialed in from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do think that think a lot about the future of job search, and I got a feeling that voice is somehow going to be a part of this, whether it's you're interacting with a voice job search coach like Phil, or you are just speaking what you want to look for in terms of just into your phone and getting jobs that way, right? Do you guys have like a skunkworks there, or do you guys work on some of this stuff maybe?
Yeah, testing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. We do a lot of job seeker A/B testing to see what clicks. And if you think about some simple examples, it would be understanding for different job seekers, just the input mechanisms. Do they want to do voice? Do they want to do web? Do they prefer to do text? So there are some simple things around adoption, around those types of capabilities. And then the types of questions people are comfortable answering, the types of questions that we think they might be answering truthfully versus very aspirationally. So, you put in 200K for the salary if somebody was sort of fresh out of college and maybe had a non-technical degree and they're looking for 200K a year. Maybe that's highly aspirational, but not too realistic.
Yeah. Let's talk about remote jobs for a minute. They seem to be getting, the remote jobs are, because of COVID and the pandemic, are the most sought after now, and they get a lot more applies. You guys seen that internally, and have you guys addressed it at all as far as like breaking out those remote jobs for candidates?
Yeah, and there's some different experience stuff we've built out to help both the employer make sure it's very clear which types of jobs are remote versus have like an actual physical location requirement. And then from the job seeker point of view, we've definitely seen more interest and demand from job seekers for remote jobs. Not always in sort of, I'd say not all of those folks are going to be able to work a remote job. So there is a natural sort of constraint on what jobs can be done remotely. I think that's pretty clear. And so I'd say probably the demand from job seekers outstrips the supply of remote positions, as far as I'm aware. I don't know the numbers specifically on that, but that's my understanding.
Mhm.
So there's going back to that aspirational point. I think some job seekers are just aspirationally trying to get into that remote work life. They probably hear their, cousins or their some other family members talking about how awesome it is, and they want a little bit of that experience.
Yeah. Your competitor tried to launch a paper application last year. I'm curious, do you guys what did you think of that move? I mean, do you have any kind of personal opinions on it? And did you guys ever look at that as well?
Sorry, that was on for pay.
For PPA, like paper application type
Oh,
of
paper application. Yeah.
models. Yeah.
Yeah, paper application is a challenging model. We've experimented with some different models on the enterprise side of the business over the years. One of the big issues is for non sort of ATS integrated campaigns where the job seeker is applying through the career site or through the ATS. The tracking of those application signals is going to be increasingly challenged by some of the privacy constraints that are being dropped into the browsers, Chrome, Safari, et cetera, and into the mobile operating systems in particular, with Android and iOS. And so that model gets a little bit flimsy from sort of a tracking point of view. And I think the model that one of our competitors launched required a lot of work from the employer. And you had to really be on top of things to make sure that you weren't paying for what you didn't want to pay for. And then you get into a little bit of a finger pointing debate on like, well, I don't want to pay for this application or pay for that application. And I think that distracts from what we're really trying to get at, which is, are we putting butts in seats? Are we filling roles? Are we getting people hired? And if we're sitting there haggling over CPAs and which apps get paid for, it's very distracting from the end goal. And we're not really a big fan of introducing that distraction.
Yeah, I tell all my job board clients, look, once you send that apply click over to the employer, you've done your job as the job board, right? It's up
Yeah.
to them to convert them at that point. And I think a lot of employers fail to realize that.
And that goes back to my earlier point on trying to help look at data to help guide our customers and help them be more effective. When we can collaborate and take sort of our data, which would be, impression to maybe click out or maybe a captured apply if we're integrated with their ATS, and then take their data from their ATS and look at the apply and all the post-apply behavior, we can paint a really good picture. We can help them understand where they can be more effective, but we can also take a little bit more responsibility for beyond the apply click or beyond even the apply, because we want Phil here to make sure that he's learning. If I just lean into that AI role a little bit more there, we want Phil to learn and make better recommendations and understand maybe some more of the behaviors and the nuances that might correlate with somebody who's just clicking out or even applying to somebody who's going to get hired. So that full funnel visibility really helps us optimize things.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think you guys will ever purchase another, major job board out there and kind of try and consolidate the market a bit overall? I've always thought that, like I've gone on record saying like, you guys should buy Career Builder or Monster or some of these other guys and just, leverage those other platforms out there that would help you guys. But what have been your expansion thoughts here in the market, if at all?
Yeah, I would say we're really focused on organic growth at ZipRecruiter as much as we can. I mentioned earlier some of the stats on our organic job seeker growth, 40% last year, app growth. So really trying to invest in our core products, our core branded products, people having job seekers in particular having an experience with ZipRecruiter as the job search brand. We have made one acquisition in the past, that was jobboard.io. Christian, the sort of founder and kind of sole proprietor of that business, is still with us today and is a key part of our strategic team. So we've done that, but otherwise, I think we're really going to be looking for organic growth.
Gotcha. Okay. So what have you learned in your journey here, Matt? It's been 10 years now. What have you learned about the overall job search process? Because it's still broken out there. If you ask most job seekers, but what do you tell the regular job seeker when they tell them you work at ZipRecruiter? What do they ask you about?
Yeah, I'd say everybody knows the name. So when I bump into somebody new and eventually work comes up, everybody knows the name. People have their favorite sort of way that they've heard the ads, depending on the radio station or the podcast or whatever it might be. So I'd say that the awareness is pretty ubiquitous. And depending on who I'm talking to, if it's somebody who, from my prior career in ad tech, I get to say it's much more rewarding to work in an industry where we're helping get people hired than just, sell widgets or increase CPMs. But there was kind of this joke 10 years ago when I joined that this industry was 10 years behind ad tech. I don't know that we've actually made any material gains on the employer side. Maybe a couple of years. So I'd say we're now maybe further than 10 years back in terms of the sophistication, but it's a different industry too. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. We're not just slinging impressions. We're not just trying to get people to buy things. We're actually trying to get, recruiters and job seekers together and get roles filled. So I think maybe where we're at from a tech point of view is kind of okay in many ways. On the job seeker side, I think there's still a ton of room for improvement. And a few things stand out. As you saw in the last screen that you had pulled up, like we're not just throwing a big search box in front of job seekers anymore. We're trying to learn more about them, primarily because search is hard. People don't know what to type in. If you know that you are a marketing manager and that is like what you want to do next, you might know to type that in. But a lot of people are just very skill transferable, if you will. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is learn more about what they're capable of doing and then introduce them to or expose them to more jobs that they might not be aware of. And I kind of look at that as like, I want to be more of like the Netflix of job search, where you sit on the couch, you pull up your Netflix app on your smart TV, and there's just a bunch of recommendations. And some of those recommendations are contextualized, like, hey, this is new, or it's trending now, or you're getting recommended this because you watched Iron Man, or this because, you watched SpongeBob SquarePants, or whatever it might be. So some of that contextualization, but Netflix learns from your behavior and then tries to get you to watch more stuff and keep you engaged on their platform. And that's how I would look at what we want to do, not throw up a big search box and say, good luck to you. We hope you know that there's this random job out there you've never heard of before because you've never been exposed to it. So for me, that's like the big broken thing.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the Netflix experience. Like, why don't you guys have an app for Fire TV? I could sit there and browse Ziprecruiter while I'm in between commercials and stuff.
I'll add that to the roadmap.
Good stuff, Matt. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been a fun conversation. Anything else you want to leave for the audience there about 2024 in Ziprecruiter?
Yeah, I think we'll make it a good year. We've got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline, a lot of good things that we'll come out with.
Can we expect any new features from you guys from whether the job search perspective, the employer perspective this year?
Absolutely, both on those. And we are really going to continue to focus on making our core product much better. We might look at some investments in some other solutions, but really just make that core product better, make the job search better for the job seeker, and make the sort of candidate engagement process better and faster for the recruiters. So I'd say a lot of what we're going to be focused on is that speed component. Can we get people applying to new jobs quickly? Can we get recruiters engaging quickly, get roles filled quickly, get people placed quickly? So not to beat that like a dead horse, but I think that's what we're going to focus a lot on. So you'll see some stuff come out that is both visible and talked about, and you'll see some stuff that's kind of behind the scenes and more invisible, but very tangible if you are an engaged job seeker.
Sounds good. Well, again, appreciate your time, Matt, and thanks for joining us today here in RecTech.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
All right, that will do for this episode of the podcast. Be sure to follow us on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, via the @RecTech Media handle. See every video, blog, and podcast we publish. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Remember, always be recruiting.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter @ChrisRussell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps keep employers and recruiters up to date through our podcasts, webinars, and articles. So be sure to check out our other sites, Recruiting Headlines and HR Podcasters, to stay on top of recruiting industry trends. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.